to Everlasting Talk. Hello, welcome to Everlasting Talk. I'm your host, Evaristo Jr. Herrera, and today we're doing the Biography Series, Episode 2, talking about Malcolm X. Welcome. Malcolm X was a civil rights leader, human rights activist, and American Muslim minister who was famous for being part of the Nation Islam under Elijah Muhammad. He was considered the more extreme of the civil rights leaders, compared to Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. advocated nonviolence no matter what. Malcolm X advocated violence. If they got attacked themselves, you should attack back. So that's a misconception that he just wanted to attack people just because. No, in reality, it was more in self-defense. Malcolm X was born Malcolm Little on May 19, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. He was one of 7 children, and his parents were Louise and Earl Little. The Little family were the followers of Marcus Garvey, a famous minister who advocated and believed that African Americans should be able to protect themselves, have their own businesses, and provide for themselves. As Earl Little himself was a minister, he would constantly get death threats from many members of the community, including the Ku Klux Klan, thus prompting him to move constantly. Eventually, the family settled in Lansing, Michigan in 1929, and they were the only African American family in town, and they were constantly harassed and experienced racism to no end. There was an offset of the Ku Klux Klan known as the Black Legion. The Black Legion will constantly attack their home. Actually, one time they would actually bomb their home and they have been having them to want to leave, but the Little family was not having it. Eventually, Malcolm X's dad, was found killed by a streetcar allegedly, and the family did not believe that he would kill himself because the Lansing Police Department ruled it a suicide, and they actually believed it was murder committed by the Black Legion. So eventually the mom would have to take care of all the children, and she would actually go insane. Thus, Malcolm X and his siblings would be separated, but it did say that eventually they would reunite and actually go ahead and meet up one day. So he was in foster care. He was with a new family. He was going to school. He had inspirations of becoming a lawyer, but his teacher told him that there's such thing as African American lawyers. So he got disillusioned with that opportunity, and he says, "What's the point of going to school if I'm not going to learn anything?" So at the age of 15, he decided to drop out of school, and he actually decided to turn to a life of crime. He would actually move to Harlem, New York, where he actually met a fellow by the name of Malcolm as well, and it would actually go as Reds. So Detroit Red would be Malcolm X, and Little Red, Chicago would be the other Malcolm. And eventually they'll be making a lot of money through prostitution rings, racketeering. They would, other crimes. They would eventually meet up with 2 white women that were actually wealthy. They were actually women who had the thrill seeker kind of opportunities. So they would, be with both Malcolms. And eventually in 1949, they were caught. The women actually got let go because the white jury saw these African American men as trying to coerce these women, and were forcing them to do this and commit crimes. In reality, the women were willing participants, but both Malcolm X and his associate other Malcolm got prison time, and the women got to go home, enjoy their times with their families. So he was sentenced to prison. He was disillusioned with life. He had no direction. We'd eventually talk to another inmate, and he would actually get into reading. Eventually, after a couple years, his brother would call him that they got reunited. That he decided they were actually looking to the Nation of Islam. The Nation of Islam at the time was under Elijah Muhammad, which would empower African Americans to go ahead and defend themselves and rise up and be independent against their white oppressors. And eventually, after hearing the words of Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X would have converted to Islam, changed his name from Malcolm X to Malcolm Little. No, Malcolm Little to Malcolm X. Quote, he changed it because for me, my ex replaced the white slave master name of Little, which sure, some blue-eyed white devil named Little had imposed upon my fraternal pallbearers. He would actually go ahead and be so inspirational in the prison. He would convert other prisoners to Islam, and it would actually scare a lot of the prison guards and the warden, because they were afraid that this man had so much influence that once he got out, he would go out and actually initiate race riots. So, but eventually he was released after 6 years, where he would actually partner or be a part of the Nation of Islam with under Elijah Muhammad being the spokesperson, being a mouthpiece of the organization, as Elijah Muhammad would not actually talk as much. So actually, when Malcolm X got into the Nation of Islam, there was only about 500 members. But after a while, with Malcolm X's influence, the membership would actually go up to 30,000 members. They got so big, they went from New York, they expanded to California, they opened a second church out there, and they're just going good. But after a while, Malcolm X found out that Elijah Muhammad was actually cheating on his wife and had several children with some underage women. They're all between the ages of 16 to 17 years old. And actually, Malcolm X distanced himself from Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam because he felt like they were not actually following the principles of Islam that he was reading in the Quran. So he decided to take his own journey, which led him to a pilgrimage to Mecca, where he would actually, in Saudi Arabia, where you actually go ahead and see that Islam was not just a religion of segregation. It was actually about love. There was white, there was black, there was people from all over the world coming to Mecca together to praise Islam. So he saw that, and he changed his opinions of what was going on. So once he came back to the United States, he was a changed man. He decided to actually want to go international. He would travel to multiple African countries. He would advocate human rights. He would talk to the UN about seeing if they could assist with helping with African Americans, because they were being persecuted. He wanted them to go out there and let the United States know that it's not right how they were being treated. He actually saw now more Martin Luther King Jr. as an equal, not as enemy, because he always thought that Martin Luther King's approach of everybody being together was just asinine and crazy. But once he saw what the pilgrimage he had in Africa, and I mean the pilgrimage he had in the Middle East, he decided to actually go ahead and listen more to Martin Luther King Jr. Eventually, Malcolm X he actually changed his name from Malcolm X to El Hajj Malik Al Shabazz, and eventually started preaching the word. Elijah Muhammad saw this as a threat, that he was going to lose all his followers to the word of Malcolm X. And so allegedly there's allegedly that he ordered the hits. There was a hit on his life. Malcolm X knew his life was in danger, so he said he was looking forward to it, actually, which was people nowadays don't think about that. He actually was under threat by his own organization. So on February 21st, 1965, he was at the Audubon Ballroom, New York City, doing a speech, and actually a couple members of the Nation of Islam actually went up and shot him. He got shot 21 times, actually by the alleged shooter by Thomas Hager, also known as Masjid Abdul Halim. And Malcolm X would not survive his injuries. Eventually, the men got arrested and they got sentenced. But the legacy of Malcolm X, lives on. People, know about Malcolm X, his teachings, his writings. I definitely, he definitely had a lot going for him. If he survived, if he wasn't murdered, assassinated by his own organization, he probably would have been there to see the Civil Rights Act being signed. So it's definitely a loss to many people, but his teachings continue and are very important. There's actually a movie called Malcolm X, same name, starring Denzel Washington. It's a really good movie. I've seen it a couple times. I definitely recommend it. He's actually there's actually a couple books as well. The Autobiography of Malcolm X that came out in 1965, as well as other books. If you're interested in learning more about his story, about more about who he is and about his mindset and about his heart and what led him to believe what to believe. Actually, there's some several quotes that I really liked what he said. He says, I like, there's a quote, he says, quote, "You can't separate peace from freedom because no one can be at peace unless he has his freedom." So that's what he wanted. He actually wanted his people, African American community, to be free to live in this country that, says that people, all men are created equal, and he really believed that. And also another one says, "No one can give you freedom, no one can give you equality or justice or anything. If you're a man, you take it." So that was his approach. He wanted freedom, and he actually wanted to go ahead and get it himself. So it's definitely a good opportunity for people to, if you want to learn more about him, to watch his movie, read his autobiographies. I definitely recommend it. If Thank you so much for listening to this. Follow me on Instagram, on Twitter, YouTube. Follow me on also, Twitch, as eventually I'll see posting videos. And thank you for watching this video, a biography series, Malcolm X, and looking forward to seeing you in the next episodes down the road. And I thank you so much. Signing out.